Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Enterprise Podcast. This show is all about learning together from the best in the industry. We chat with founders, innovators, operators about their stories, the lessons they've learned building their companies, and how are they thinking about the future. The goal is simple: to help us all get a little smarter, sharper, and more limitless together. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. I'm your host, Zico Fernandes, the founder of Limitless Era, where we partner with prop tech companies to help them grow and run efficiently. Today, I have John. He's a leader in CryptoWorth, and it's time for him to tell his story. So let's dive in. So, John, why don't you tell us more about what you do, your story, into how you came into this company, what were you doing before your journey, right?
Absolutely. Well, pleasure to be on the show. My name's John. People who know me call me Johnny, and some people call me the Johnny Crypto. Uh,
Uh,
I've been actively involved in the crypto space for over a decade now, but professionally since 2020, and had a career in software in one way or another. Um, but more focused on enterprise software since around the same time that I actually got into Bitcoin, which is around the 2015, 2016 timeframe. I
okay.
currently work at CryptoWorth's, although I don't give it financial advice. My
Yeah.
thoughts are my own,
Yeah.
and I'm not speaking for CryptoWorth on this podcast. These are my own thoughts.
Okay, that's good to know. Yes, and for those over here, we'll be diving into cryptos over here. You'll hear a few names. Maybe that's where the conversation will head. But nothing we say here is investment advice. This is only for educational purposes, and it's mainly about. It's not really the asset that matters. It's what you do with the asset, where the world is heading. That's where our focus is really. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So maybe talk to me, Johnny. You're doing a lot of stuff. How does your typical day look like right now?
Yeah. So uh, while I'm a professional and a crypto and Bitcoin enthusiast, I'm also a husband and a father to my son who's turning 2 this weekend. So
Nice.
we are excited for that. I get my day started. My wife is a working professional as well. We both have high stress careers. So I try to get up and get the family situated, and I have a standing meeting with the executive team at CryptoWorth at 8 a.m. every morning. It's brief. It's really just clearing anything that's relevant for the day, and there's always something to talk about.
Yeah.
What I like about working in the digital assets and crypto industry is it's extremely fast paced. So you'll never if you're sitting around and you're looking and you're like, hey, there's nothing going on right now, you're about to probably not be in the crypto industry anymore because there's always something going on that's moving really fast. But so then I engage with customers until all day long. Sometimes that's, fielding inbound and, different calls that I get pulled into. That can be anywhere from a fire to just an introduction with a customer. We are at CryptoWorth a crypto accounting product. What I like about that is we are the regulated, non-scam side of the digital assets and crypto industry. Scammers don't try to generate financial statements to give to regulators. They don't
Yeah.
really care about that. So the people that are talking to CryptoWorth, much for, I'm very grateful for, are the people inside the digital asset space who are meaningfully trying to build on this technology and accelerate it into the market. So if you are involved in that space, you get to work with all the best people if you're on the accounting side. So that would be my one plug. It's also accounting, so it might not be the most thrilling thing, but if you get a lot of energy and enthusiasm from the digital asset space, you kind of get to talk to everybody in the space. You're Switzerland.
What's really good is if you're not a scammer and you're in crypto, you have to talk to CryptoWorth.
That's right. Absolutely. Or you have to talk to one of our competitors, but you
Yeah.
have to get accounting done,
Yeah.
right? You have to do accounting well, or you don't know how much money you made, and it is very hard to track. It's like if you've ever even just had a couple of transactions, 50 transactions for your own personal finances, and you try to track that in crypto, it's hard. Now imagine these companies are doing 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month, right? The transaction volume increases the complexity of the problem that we're solving for businesses. CryptoWorth is a B2B SaaS-based distribution tool. It's not B2C.
Yeah.
The purpose of our tool is to fold the raw data from on-chain, is what they call it, and from exchanges and custody agents. We ingest all those transactions to a traditional financial in and out. Credits and debits is what they call it. We get there through a proprietary data pipeline, and then we pass it to a traditional, what's called general ledger, which is softwares that most people have heard of on this call. QuickBooks, Xero, NetSuite, those types of systems we're passing those financial transactions to. So once again, couldn't be more rigid of an industry where we're passing it to. It's built the entire global financial infrastructure between these tools from small businesses to large, and SAP being, we have customers that close on SAP, the bigger ones, right, as well. But everything from the on-chain transactions and the software that we're building is incredibly complicated, and it requires a lot of enthusiasm for us and our competitors every day in
Yeah.
order to help solve this problem. So you have to fight through a lot of pain to get there.
So maybe talk to me a little bit more. You alluded to it. You are primarily a B2B business. So who are your customers? Are they traders, trading companies? Are they companies that just want to buy some crypto and keep it on their books, or or else, like who are all these things right
Yeah.
now, and maybe that will change in the future, but I'm trying to understand who.
So the answer is yes to all of those. Um, there's really a line, right? There's traditional businesses that are in traditional finance in the what crypto people call the fiat world. And then you have crypto people or digital assets people that are building on chain. So like on Ethereum or an L2 network on Bitcoin or Ethereum, or launching their own layer chain like Solana that's trying to be a competitor to Ethereum. You're building technology that are called decentralized apps and smart contracts on top of these chains, right? So I would say that for CryptoWorth, we can satisfy any use case. If you're a business and you have a digital asset transaction, whether that's a stable coin or Bitcoin that you're trying to hold on your balance sheet, or you're doing payments inside of your company in a traditional company, sure, we can do that. But the companies that find the most value out of the highly complex system that we built are those more crypto companies that are building on chain, right? That are doing very complex decentralized finance transactions. So, but we can solve any problem as it relates to that.
Okay, that makes sense. I think it's more crypto native companies, and how does crypto native company plug into the traditional world or traditional world of accounting world. So you guys are the bridge for them. And the complexity, I can see the complexity over there versus fiat world will be way different many times over. So definitely the complex product like yours is needed in those for those. Okay. Do you see, big enterprises also using your software to trade? Like, what about MicroStrategy type of solution? Many people are interested in doing something like that nowadays.
So that's called a digital asset treasury now. MicroStrategy being the leader, Michael Saylor being the brainchild of what a Bitcoin treasury or a digital asset treasury company is. Even within the past couple of weeks and months, it started to be called a DAT. DAT, digital asset treasury. And yes, we have actually had many come in and start being a customer with us. So we're happy that we're expanding
Mhm.
into publicly traded companies. This is the interesting intersection because a company our size wouldn't normally be closing books for, or helping to close books for a company that is publicly traded. But we are we built ourselves so deep into the fabric of Web3 that we make their lives so easy that we're able to do business with them one after another. But
Yeah, that's
that's a
good.
good use case. We should probably talk more about that. It's complicated.
Yeah, I think that's definitely more about for another episode, I think, right? There's lots to do over there. But I think that's a good teaser for the people to come back next then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And to have you back on the show.
I would love that.
So let's talk about we talked about the company, what it does, who it serves. Let's talk about what the future is, right? Where the future is headed. What are you seeing in terms of trends in this industry, and how are you being part of that future?
Well, the trends in the industry are highly unregulated. digital assets are highly unregulated, have been for a long time, and we're just starting to see actual regulation come in, meaningful regulation come into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So accounting is a cousin to regulation, right? Like it's a response to the regulation that's being put out. Our government says this is the regulation, then we account builds processes that help businesses comply with those regulations. That's what accounting is, right? Very high level. So now that we're finally getting clarity in the digital assets industry, we're able to more meaningfully generate financial reports for that industry. And what's cool about B2B accounting and general ledgers from my perspective is once you've aggregated all this data, you're created what's called a P&L statement, a couple of other what are called general ledger reports in accounting. And those are applicable globally. Any accountant on the planet will understand what those reports are. And then they can take those reports down to their jurisdiction and file with a regulator, should they choose to, in the EU, in the United States, in the UAE, so on and so forth. But it's the same report, all those different places for the most part. And they're just kind of repurposing it to that jurisdiction as their requirements meet. So I'm really excited that we get to work in an industry that has that type of global reach and impact. The way that that translates to my day to day is I could, in the morning, I'm having calls with Europe mainly through the morning. And then like this evening, I'll be on calls with Dubai and Asia all the way through Australia. So,
Wow.
um, I don't want to sound too much like I work too hard, but like oftentimes a 10 to 12-hour day during business days are common.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Just from where the adoption is a lot more, what can you say about, these type of solutions? Who's asking for them the most? I'm trying to see where are the innovative people headed, right? Is which part of the world do you think there's more innovation going on? And this is a good indicator over there based on how
Yeah, there's
you're having.
so you're asking, you're pulling a thread here, right? Yeah, in my opinion, the way the only meaningful way to answer that question is to really understand what Bitcoin is and why it was invented at a very high level. It was thought through and developed in 2008. The white paper came out in 2009. The launch was like late 2009, 10 of the software itself. And it was a response to the financial crisis. It was a response to bank bailouts. And it was a very aspirational project, Bitcoin, where you would have a money system that was outside of government ownership and authorship, that it was truly something that could be outside uh, the financial system and more of a commodity, as most people are calling it now, and similar to gold in function, in that if you felt that your currency, regardless of where you live, right, is being inflated away in value, and you wanted to purchase something to meaningfully store the work energy that you've had, right? Another way to say that is to hedge against the currency that your nation state may be inflating away or not inflating away, but you want it, you were speculating like that, then Bitcoin would be the start of that. Now, every other asset in crypto, including Ethereum, is not Bitcoin. And there's a
Yeah.
huge separation, and it's very important that you say that. Bitcoin remains the first cryptocurrency. It is and has been between 50 and 60% of the entire market share. When you say cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
50 to 60% of it is just Bitcoin. So everything else is everything, all these other crazy meme coins, Trump coin, like all this other stuff, that is all crypto. And it does not serve the same function as what I just described out loud for Bitcoin
Yeah.
and why it was created. So emerging markets, sorry, long-winded way to say emerging markets immediately have need of it because oftentimes their currencies are being inflated away through a number of different mechanisms. If you're a French province in Northern Africa, right? Then you have layers of inflation that are affecting your own currency through regulation. You have to hold French currency in your reserve. The French bank has to hold the United States currency in their reserve as a reserve mechanism, so that when Trump or Biden or any American president were to come in and print a bunch of money, you would have a cascading effect all the way down, and you'd be the holder of a lot of the negative effects of what inflation might cause. A global, permissionless way to opt out of that system and hold on to something that is like digital gold is what Bitcoin is. It's why its price is so high, and it's why it's continuing to gain meaningful adoption. And it doesn't seem like it's going away. But that's not the conversation that we're having today.
I know. See, I knew this would go to some of these coins, and you said it in a way that people will definitely go and trade it. Again, guys, this is not investment advice, right? Do your own research, but
Not
Bitcoin
to
is all that
info.
we said it is, right? And you would hear, I think people already know this to a large extent, but it does, but it's still with your conviction, people might be interested in buying more. What I'll say, what I want to try to go to next is, so you talked about the future is being able to, being able to help various jurisdictions. On one side, there's crypto, which is large and expanding and growing, and converting it to a normalized form of accounting, and then feeding it to the special requirements of every. So in that way, traditionally, maybe companies could only serve the location that they were in, but because the crypto networks or all of the databases are global, there is definitely a lot of people using it, and that it directly leads its way into you guys also being global, because you're serving a global need over there, right?
Absolutely. I think one thing that you're describing, which is the other side of somebody who isn't worried about their currency inflating as much, would be a stable coin, right? So that is a digital synthetic version of their currency, of their nation's currency, of which I think there's one of every nation's currency at this point. The novel improvement to fintech and to the overall payments industry that blockchain brought was this permissionless way to actually transfer money from one side of the world to another for a very low cost. So one of the most common initial uses of cryptocurrency is stablecoin adoption. Oftentimes it's the US dollar, and oftentimes it's used to pay international contractors because you don't have to go through a Forex exchange in order to do it. You get a stablecoin, you send it over, the contractor gets it. It's the dollar is the dollar here and there. It's created some additional concerns that the
Yeah.
globe is still trying to regulate and figure out, but overall, it's been incredibly impactful for way in which emerging markets can more meaningfully engage with the tech industry and be paid on time and efficiently.
Okay, so you guys are the rails for contractors all over the world to get paid. It could be,
We
right?
account for the rails. We're a reporting tool. Yeah. So Stripe would be the rails. I think they would be probably the market leader in both fiat and crypto payments for fintech, early stage fintech companies. We are, when those transactions happen either on the traditional side of the ledger or the crypto side of the ledger, we readily grab,
Uh-huh. Okay.
review them, grab them, and then get them back to QuickBooks, Xero, NetSuite, whatever tool they're
Yeah.
using to close.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important use case also. That's why the adoption of stable coins will increase a lot more. It's just more efficient to pay people permissionless. I think that's the key over there. Okay, cool. Talk to me about, just from you, the company. Let's go into what are the challenges that you see in this future that you paint over here, right?
Sure.
For the company, for the crypto world, what do you see in the horizon?
There's a lot of competition in the market, but that's true of any SaaS product, I think. There's always going to be competition. I think that our industry is small right now. I think the crypto industry is nascent, I would even say. And I would say that the crypto accounting tools are a bespoke offering to a nascent industry. So we haven't seen real meaningful adoption of cryptocurrencies in the past 5 years outside of Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Yeah.
All the other ones have actually been stagnated. Now that's changing a little bit. like
Yeah.
middle of this year and beyond just a little bit. I think that there's still a long way to go. So the total addressable market for crypto needs to expand meaningfully. And one of the reasons why I get excited to get out of bed in the morning is I actually think that that adoption curve comes beyond um, technology helping those end businesses prove to regulators that they're not
Yeah.
scams. Because I think the number one, and for good reason, I think that there are a lot of scammers out there, but that's true of any
Any
industry
sector.
as well. AI, people are being scammed from AI. It's not quite as sensational conversation for some reason as crypto. Every time you bring up the word crypto, every time you bring up digital assets, and these other things, people will start talking about scams and these other things. I'm like, well, I've heard 8 other stories about AI. I've heard 8 other stories about
But
gold. I've heard eight
it's
other stories
mainly
about
the size and scale of some of these crypto scams that have happened. Every time a scam happens, you take away people. It slows the adoption, right? So those things has been they've just been bigger and many people were affected versus AI scams. Maybe they are smaller in size, but there are many that don't get to be marketed as well. I mean, they're not as well marketed in a way.
yeah,
But I think there's scams everywhere. It's just that, that's a bad branding with all those scams. Do you think it's easy for people to do scams in crypto? Is that the reason why you have more there?
you
Or
can't
big scam?
so it's easier to build a narrative around it because you can't recall the crypto payment. But the size of the scale, while it is a big number, while you're looking directly at it, there have been many major U.S. banks that have had orders of magnitude more malfeasance that they openly admit to and then pay settlements on. They just like, oh yeah, you caught us. Like, well, I shouldn't mention any particular names, but all the settlements are available that you can see, and they're way larger than some of these collapses with this. Now, I don't want to see anybody lose money for any reason, whether it's AI, crypto, or otherwise, right? Like that's
Yeah,
not really what I'm trying to say. But the reality of the matter is there's always a malfeasance happening. The number one currency that is being used is not cryptocurrency to do that. It's cash. It's US dollars is the number one instrument that's doing this. It's not gold. So um it's just not as fun to have that conversation. People aren't interested in it. Doesn't hit a headline and doesn't resonate for whatever reason. Yeah, I think that there's a if you dig a little bit more deeply, it's it's a sensational topic for some reason. People really
yeah,
like to dig into it, but the reality is it comes to an actual moment in a cryptographic transaction where it leaves my custody or my wallet and it enters after it passes through the blockchain as code, right?
yeah,
Into your wallet and your custody. Once that engagement has happened, it can't be retracted for any reason. It's an immutable process, right?
yeah,
And so one of the things that has sent ripples through the digital assets industry is obviously that doesn't really work for consumer protections. And that's not the actual reality of how a lot of these blockchains ultimately operate. There's been times where they've rewound the tape. That hasn't happened with Bitcoin. The immutable nature of Bitcoin is different about Bitcoin, but that's happened with most of the other chains that are out there, and I won't go into specific ones, but that can be problematic for some people. Some people believe that regardless of how that transaction happened, it shouldn't be recalled. It should still be accounted for, and it should still be moving forward. But that's more of a philosophy of approach on these things. Regulators have come through and they've said if a stable coin needs to be recalled from your wallet back to my wallet because of whatever reason, that the issuer of that coin on that chain should be able to do that. And you can now, like there's a way in the smart contract that you can do that for most stable coins if they're touching a Western country. And some of them not, but it's code, right? You're adding a line of code to be able to do that, or you're removing that code so you can't do that.
yeah. Okay, let's tease up a little bit here. So what I'm hearing is, maybe you can tell me more about it, is now, so it's almost like the future of your company depends on the adoption of crypto, right? So maybe talk to me about what are the challenges other than that. What are all the challenges do you see for the growth of this company as such, or for financial reporting in general?
Well, I mean, we are a crypto accounting software, so absolutely. If crypto doesn't exist, or like on-chain interactions don't need to be accounted for that would be detrimental to the business. I don't really foresee that being the case. I see a lot of adoption growing. I work in this industry because I believe it actually provides a meaningful way to express yourself financially that hasn't existed prior to 2008 and the invention of Bitcoin. Some of the other challenges are because it hasn't been regulated, the APIs themselves that we aggregate. Another way to think of our company is we're like the Plaid for crypto. Plaid
Yeah.
is a tool that in the traditional financial world allows you to connect. Many people have done this from your fintech app to a bank in order to ingest transaction or interact with your own personal bank account in a secure way. We're kind of like the Plaid for crypto. We're able to see and ingest transaction information so that you can perform a reporting function, not a payments function, but a reporting function. There is no standardization in that industry, and this has been a core problem that I've been very vocal about in the industry, even being involved with some white papers that have tried to push forward a collaborative industry-based effort in order to have a standardization across exchanges and a standardization across the emission of data for chains so that it makes this easier for everybody, including our company, but
Yeah.
our competitors in the whole industry, to actually account for these transactions.
What other
Because,
are you seeing now other than that? So
what do you say?
that's a tech challenge, and
Yeah.
there are ways to solve it, but those are, I think, you're definitely part of many groups and communities. It's ultimately, you need the big guys to adopt it, big guys to set the standard, and everybody else follow suit, right? It's in the numbers maybe, but I don't know. Maybe there aren't that many big guys here, or they're not interested or bought into it. Maybe that's a feature for them and not a bug, but it does affect everything else.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, but the whole digital assets industry is this term decentralized.
Yeah,
The nature of the industry is to do it your own way and to
correct.
give you the freedom to do that. So you're fighting the very nature and fabric of what's built this industry. Even if the big guy tells you we're going to do it this way, that's not,
Yeah, I think you're going against the culture of those people. Okay, that's interesting. I like that
yeah,
answer. That's awesome. You're fighting against my being, right? So cool. That makes so
essentially, yeah.
much sense now.
And I
Yeah,
like that about the industry. Like
yeah. That's a
I
feature.
also want standardization so that everybody can kind of come to consensus. But that in and of itself is centralization in some form.
Yeah,
And by
and
centralizing, you're not decentralizing, and the whole point is to be decentralized. We already
I
have a bank in all of these countries that are doing the centralized function. So to your point, what you just said out loud is very apt.
yeah. Okay, cool. What other challenges do you see for yourself and the company in growing, or what
Yeah.
exactly are challenges in growth that your focuses on right now?
Uh, I mean, I think any SaaS product suffers from, in some cases, snowflake syndrome when you're first building the product. It doesn't matter which one it is, right? Nobody knows how to use it because you just built it, right? And then you're constantly refining that. And I love the team over at CryptoWorth. They do an amazing job at making it easier and easier while keeping a high amount of customization. And the problem that you're solving is infinitely complex. So you're always on that knife's edge in a SaaS product of like providing too many features and customization and overwhelming a more basic user.
Yeah.
I say, especially when you're in the crypto accounting space, that it's a lot like playing a violin, right? Like I can hand you a violin. That doesn't mean that it sounds good when you try to start playing it, right? And that doesn't mean that if I told you to go a week from now, you're sitting first chair at the symphony, that you're going to be able to play the violin, right?
Hmm.
So SaaS product is great. SaaS product helps reduce a lot of that complexity.
Yeah.
And they focus in on being able to pull the value out of the end deliverable in the fastest, most automated way possible for the
Hmm.
least amount of money, right? In competition with each other. The more complex the problem is, the harder it is to design that user interface and the back end to support that function. So fortunately, unfortunately, the fortunate part is, it will have a job for a long time to come. The
Yeah.
unfortunate part is it's a very difficult job and it's a very tough problem to solve because the industry is so complex.
Yeah. So it's like, you have to just be slow and steady. It will take time. Don't fight it. Go with the trend.
customer obsession, customer obsession. People say that, like, I'm sure everybody that comes on this podcast says that. I've worked at so many companies where that's not the case. I'm very fortunate to be working with our CEO at CryptoWorth, who is truly customer obsessed,
Yes, correct.
and he can turn around features so very fast. I'm very blessed to be on that team, and for good reason, because many clients need bespoke feature set in
Mm-hmm.
order to get to the last mile to solve this problem in the current state of this market,
Mm-hmm.
in the digital asset space and crypto accounting market. And many of our competitors, while they have a lot of great other features, last mile engineering to solve the problem, either with services or other sprints to get it into that SaaS product, that's always a gap for SaaS products, by the way. Always a gap. And our team does an amazing job. They're able to really turn it around very quickly.
So what you're basically saying is the growth of the company depends on, so you have to tailor the product a little bit to get it to the last mile for any new customer. It can't be as it is. So
Oftentimes.
it has to be a little customization then.
So we had talked about how the digital assets industry moves very fast.
Yeah.
In order to advantage, most people are trading in it that are customers of ours in one way or another, or moving funds around. It's core to the software. The number of chains that pop up, it's every single day there's another chain. Every single day there's another coin. Well, there's nothing that you can build that's just always going to get it 100% of the time with all of that new
This makes sense.
software and code being built, right? So we have to build an additional API connection, not per customer, but for a lot of a customer, to put in a new layer chain, to put in a new smart contract,
Makes sense.
to build in a new exchange that just popped up, because that's what they're running their business on.
And that makes total sense. So I was thinking in terms of core features. Your core feature is always good. It's only the integration layer that has to just continually adapt, adopt any new thing that comes that maximizes value for your customers, that gets them to
It
last.
is both. It is both. It's more what we just discussed, but in that happening, the industry itself is pivoting in a very short period of time. So within 3 months, there's something that has popped up that didn't exist 3 months ago,
Wow,
because
that
and
makes
it's
it
an
for a very
iteration of something that happened 3 months ago for the first time. And things can get that old that quickly in this industry. What's the reality is, for better or for worse, right? In a permissionless architecture, we're having a global conversation about the expression of money and the expression of finance and the expression of the exchange of value as we speak. And it's happening in the background, whether we like it or not. And it's a response to a very controlled, highly regulated industry that we're used to. And when you come out of that industry, you don't really, you can be taken advantage of very easily because you don't realize how wide. It's kind of like giving a 3-year-old a car and telling them to drive to California, right? Like, it's not a good idea because they just don't understand how the world works. That's how regulated all of these other systems have been, and that's how, in Western countries at least, a lot of people are living inside of that type of a construct. And you have complete freedom on the other side, but there's
yeah.
a lot of consequence to that freedom. There's a lot of opportunities to be taken advantage of. There's a lot of risk that comes with that, and there's a lot of reward that comes on the other side of that for some people. But most people, not the case. Most people, if they don't know what they're doing, which I'd be the first to say, it's not financial advice. But if you don't know what you're doing in any market, including digital assets, stock market, commodities trading, you shouldn't be in that market. You shouldn't be putting your money in something you don't understand.
Yeah. I don't know why. There are always some industries that people think that they can do it on their own, and nothing in this world is just trying to do it on your own. You can't wing it in every culture. I mean, there's something about learning from others, being in a company. You have to be surrounded by people who are experts and learn from them. And somehow in these trading and all, people somehow felt that you don't need to learn from experts. You can just do it because the tools are available, democratized for everyone. They think it's easy because the tools are available, and people forget the mindset and those processes and everything to make that right. So just yeah.
What's exciting about the space, once you have learned it, once you dip your toe in the pond and you kind of like try to start figuring it out, because it's so highly regulated over on this side of the fence
Yeah.
in these Western banks and Western countries and the way it's done, there's almost been no innovation in hundreds of years. Literally, since the internet has existed, there has been very little to no meaningful innovation. And so going back to the comment of it pivots every 3 months for some new thing, it's able to do that because there has been no innovation for so long because it has been so regulated. So what is extremely hard, and I'm sympathetic to in a way to regulators, especially inside the United States and the EU and these other places, is they don't know how to engage. They left the internet able to find itself out, right?
Hmm.
Like most people shorted Facebook when it first went on the stock market because it didn't have
Yeah.
ads didn't exist in a meaningful way and they didn't know how they were going to monetize attention. And now we live in such a highly monetized attention based economy. There were
Yeah.
people that could see it and it was very apparent to them. And there were other people that said they couldn't see it. And that was the vast majority of people. Those 90+% of people couldn't see it. So, in a similar way, that's what's happening with cryptocurrency right now. That's what's happening with digital assets. That's what's happening with stablecoins, tokenization, staking, all these other, verticals that are inside the digital asset space. They are trying to find a way quickly to provide meaningful value.
Yeah.
And the reason why these companies oftentimes feel like they're a scam, the ones that are actually trying and fail, that monetary value is still getting taken from somebody. And that's not great. However, you can go pay for a penny stock on a stock market, which is similar, and you can have the same experience. Most people don't do that because they understand the risk somehow. They've been educated on the risk that a penny stock is very risky. Buying something like IBM is less risky, right? By
Yeah.
so many orders of magnitude that you really distance yourself from speculation. Some people even feel that when you buy something that's as meaningful as one of these larger stocks, that there isn't risk, but there is, right? There's always risk when you buy these different things, be it a stock, a commodity, or a digital asset. So I think that streamlining this out, the digital assets and crypto space has always been a technology in blockchain in search of a use case. And the original one solved the first use case in digital gold. Now, it fought a battle to hold that, and in some ways, it's still in small ways, I don't think particularly meaningful ways. I think that battle has been won in Bitcoin, but people will argue that, and they will continue to argue that 100 years into the future, right?
I'm sure. I'm sure.
But the rest of them are now searching for another use case. So stablecoins is that next up kind of product market fit for a use case.
Yeah.
And so more and more people are getting more and more involved in them.
So I think what we have to just think about this as, we were probably fortunate that Bitcoin was one use case and that use case is still going on after such a long time. And the solution was such a robust solution and it's taking everyone with it. If Bitcoin had failed for some reason, then it would have been crazy. But you can see the other things like even stablecoin. Many people have tried to do stablecoins every which way, and there were some failures in how that was implemented. So I think it's ultimately, thankfully, that was a good experiment. Someone really thought about it. You really need, I don't know who that guy was, right? Really is, or that group of people. They need to, these other use cases, if that mental capacity or group is still there, maybe you'll have good use cases coming here too, that the how part is really solved for, how strongly it was solved for in Bitcoin. I can see that maybe this is all A/B testing, trying it out, and maybe there are gaps. It just survival of the fittest, survival of something that can survive longer. I think that's what's going on. But we really need good intellectual people to come in and help over there too, I think, to get
Yeah.
these use cases really the how to be solved, because I think there's still room for failure, which is how experimentation is, right? Not everything works out.
Yeah. We're ultimately currently still meaningfully engaged in that process to figure this thing out, to your point, which is why there is so much risk in that space. And anyone should proceed with caution in that journey. From it, if you don't invest your money, which I'm not advocating for, that
Yeah.
you do, right? Anyone on the show that might be listening, um, it is very disruptive to the financial industry.
Yeah.
And we're rapidly moving into a world. I was just having a conversation recently with somebody that asked, like, if you can have one takeaway, what would that takeaway be? And I would say not having meaningful exposure to uh, commodities, securities, and digital assets is going to be the difference between being in the middle class and not being in the middle class, because AI is rapidly pushing us to what's called a K-shaped economy.
Yeah.
The K is the middle class being squeezed out for ever richer people and ever poorer people. The gap
Yeah.
is widening, right? And unfortunately, because I do think that it's unfortunate, right? If you don't, I think that our parents' generation could just have that person that manages their finance and they'll be okay. But I think that the actual management fee for that finance is going to be the difference between the middle class and people who are above and below that.
That's a very strong point.
For everybody, not just rich people, right? This is everybody. And it will become very meaningful. If you chart that 1% management fee, that expense ratio inside of ETFs that you might be buying on the stock market, right? If you chart that across a 30-year career, that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
regardless of what your salary is. And if you're living at that lifestyle, at that pace, at that clip, right? It's a ratio, right? So for that person, it will be a meaningful amount of money, no matter who it is,
Yeah.
by the end of the time that it gets there. So I think that we're rapidly moving into a place where people are just going to have to better and better understand, and you can't just have a guy for that. The side hustle to generate cash flow and revenue through all these other different things, I think that that's going to be gone. Anyone that fully understands what they're getting into and what they're trying to do for the investment and the amount of time that it takes in order to do that side hustle, it already is more beneficial for you to just focusing on finance and manage your own finances already there. But I think that that gap is going to be an order of magnitude in just a short period of time, like 2 to 3 years.
And the reason you say that is because of AI.
It
What's
starts with
driving that?
AI. It starts with
What's the
AI. Yeah.
future for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It starts with AI. And there's so many different things that we could break apart of why that would be. But there's in blockchain in conjunction with AI is
Yeah.
causing a thing called tokenization. And that is the hyper financialization of everything.
Uh,
Everything. Houses will be tokenized, and it's going to continue to drive. Right now, we already have BlackRock and other large asset managers buying individual family homes in the United States and causing disparity for
yeah.
the ability for people to buy a home.
Mhm.
When you tokenize that, when you fractionalize that, which is essentially taking one home and turning it into a stock, and then taking that stock and you have 100,000 pieces of that stock that you're selling for a fraction of that 100,000. Say the house was $100,000. Now you have 100,000 pieces of that stock that are all worth $1 and you're selling them on the open market. You're creating a cascading effect of hyper-financialization of everything.
Yeah.
And in doing that, if you have no understanding of finance, if you are a trade person who refuses to learn anything about finance in general, it will become ever more difficult for you to be able to have a meaningful transition out of one class to another as it relates to wealth.
Yeah. And they don't teach this. So how do you advise people learn this then? What are the resources online or anywhere else for someone to know this? They don't teach this in schools. It's probably some online communities that do this well. Maybe talk to me about that, and what takeaway you have for the folks listening to this.
So I'm not a financial advisor, right?
Just for
There
learning.
are people that there are people that if you are in debt, there are people online that are good that help you learn how to get out of debt. And that's a good place to start, because being in debt is a mismanagement of finances, and that's core to what we're talking about here, right? So follow people that are giving meaningful advice and have a proven track record, not scammers, but like a proven track record of helping people get out of debt and have businesses that are like that. Now, once you're at a place where you're out of debt or you're moving to a place of abundance out of instead of necessity, as it relates to debt and finances, you have to better, more meaningfully understand even the basics of something like what is a mutual fund, what is an ETF, what is the difference, and what is an expense ratio. And I would say that as a US citizen, right, we have 401ks. You need to know what an expense ratio is for your 401k. Everyone should know that, right? Like maybe that is financial advice, but I feel like any financial advisor that you would talk to should
It's
be
personal.
telling you that you should know what that is, right? And then you go from there, right? Like breaking apart. Okay, so this is a basket of goods. How do I educate myself on this basket of goods that is the mutual fund or ETF, and what are the differences between them? And I think that you continue to pull that apart again and again from there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's something that you continue to learn. There's lots to learn. It doesn't end, but you keep on getting more mature over time over there. Maybe I need to come up with a 5-point scale, for people to start with debt level 1 and define that scale, and then take you to hyper-financialization and how you make sense of that world and how do you win in that world.
Yeah, I think it is a genuine concern from my perspective. It's under talked about. And AI is accelerating the hyper financialization of everything. Because there's an education gap in finance and accounting, it is a corporate global place where people are being taken advantage of. And as somebody who's been working in the digital asset space, who has been taken advantage of from scams in the past, who has been wrecked as the term that they would use for this type of thing. And I've watched and understood and been educated in that experience instead of being burned, touching the stove and walking away and never using the stove again. I understand how the stove operates and how to cook on it now, right? After a decade of doing this. And what I can say is I'm concerned that AI is accelerating a misunderstanding of how to operate the stove that is finance. And that gap is widening and it's accelerating faster and faster. So you can't just be somebody who's in the trades with a pension and have
Yeah.
that work out on a 30-year time horizon for Gen Z and beyond. And even
Everybody
millennials, it's going to be a problem.
everybody needs to be their own CFO, I think.
And so, as such, to answer your original question in a very verbose way, I would say LinkedIn, Coursera, anything that's basic accounting, basic finance. Ask the question. There's no better way to be educated than you don't need to pay anything for ChatGPT. If you go to Google now, you can click AI mode, ask it questions meaningfully, and go find the answers, right? They're at your fingertips. Never been easier to educate yourself, but we've never had less time to do it, right? So you got to turn off the social media and focus in on the ways to improve ourselves, everyone, including myself, right? In order to go have that change in that.
And we spoke a long time. I want to make sure that I give some time back, but I have a couple of questions that are still remaining, and that's on top of my mind that I hadn't done a good job of asking earlier. Talk to me about if you had a magic wand, what are the things that are critical for you that you need to have resolved? We talked about a lot of these challenges around here. What are the things that are key focus for you?
Key focus, absolutely, 100% in the age of AI. You have to be a master of the trade. You have to be a subject matter expert. You have to go as deep, as far into an industry as you possibly can, niche inside of a niche inside of a niche. Personally, finance, sub industry is crypto and digital assets. A sub aspect of that is accounting. Like you have to go deep, and that's where I'm living now. Software is all the way through there. If I'm just software right now, nobody knows what to do with that corporately when they're trying to actually help you find a job, right? If you should you not have one. And in the age of AI, the generalist, the age old advice that we got from our grandparents is gone. It is no longer here. You cannot be a jack of all trades. You cannot be a generalist. That was a great way to stay employed, and just staying employed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s was enough to usually move you up into the next social wealth class. If you were gainfully employed for 30 years, you were able to move up. That
Yeah.
is no longer the world that we live in, and it is less so every day in the age of AI.
Yeah.
AI is the generalist.
Yeah.
AI is more and more the generalist, rapidly becoming the only generalist. So
Yeah.
the only way to be meaningfully providing value besides knowing how to operate the generalist, right, is to have the subject matter expertise to call the generalist of AI out on all of the errors that it's currently making. And the only way to do that is to be a subject matter expert in the room with that. And so I think that you've got a meaningful 3 to 5 years where that will remain true. Well, that will still resonate. I think it's as much as 10,
Yeah.
but that also is not, once again, extreme subject matter expertise.
Yeah.
Extreme subject matter expertise.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's a good tip for all the young people also to focus on being.
So what do you choose? You have to be enthusiastic.
Yeah.
If you say, "Oh, well, I heard that people make a lot of money in real estate," and you absolutely hate waking up and reading the trades about real estate, that's not the industry for you. Go find something else. You know what I mean? There's nobody telling me to check my phone, and I'm not looking at price, by the way. Oftentimes, I'm reading white papers about the crypto industry, about what people are doing in finance. So I encourage other people. You got to be passionate. You won't, yet because human beings learn at the opposite side of adversity, failure, and pain. That is
Mhm.
how we learn. Touching the stove is an apt analogy, right? We know once we've been burnt really bad once, we don't touch the stove again, right? So you have to have the drive and the interest to push past the pain to become that subject matter expert. And that has to come from inside of you. Nobody can push it into you. You won't make it.
For some reason, those who experience pain will have that tolerance or build that sense to continue beyond the pain. You have to experience a lot of pain to persevere. So that's what's
Absolutely.
needed for us. And I think there are a lot of people experiencing pain nowadays. Especially the folks that are just out of college. I heard about these things, and I'm sure they'll be a lot stronger because they'll pick something a lot better, right? Their
I
experience.
think they all will find a niche. I
Yeah.
think that they will naturally find a niche. And that's something that happened to me. I had other people tell me to go find a niche early on in my career,
Right.
early on in my career. And I didn't do it because I wanted the safety and security of always being, meaningfully employed. But in that, I wasn't able to, through COVID, through a number of different times, right, stay in that generalist position. And as soon as I did take the advice and go into deep subject matter expertise, it became more and more apparent why that was the best advice probably since 2008, since I was employed, but even more so and more so since COVID and in the age of AI.
And you are a 2008 guy, so that's interesting too.
I graduated film school. I was a camera engineer. I went and worked in Hollywood. I moved from my hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live now, to Hollywood in 2008. It was an interesting time. It was a wild ride.
Okay, I have one last question. What are you focused on for the next 12 months?
Yeah, the next 12 months, we have an amazing roadmap planned at CryptoWorth. So we have some of the best customers on the planet in this industry. And we've scoped out that roadmap very specifically to catering to a lot of those needs. We have a lot of surprises that we're excited to release to the market. And we are going to need every bit of 12 months and more in order to continue to execute on that roadmap in order to bring those features and functionality to the market. So I'll be focused on making sure that we continue to do that.
Okay, that's awesome. You said a lot without saying a lot. You just kept us excited over there. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Johnny Crypto, for being on the call. The discussions were varied, all interesting. Definitely, I see a lot of snippets of here that would resonate with a lot of folks. I can see businesses, folks who are in debt, the folks that are interested in starting their journey in finance or just being their own CFO. CFO is a strong word, just taking care of their finances strongly and positioning themselves. And also, the advice on niche down. be a specialist, be an expert. And the way you explained it, I think film school has done a good job at making you share stories. You keep people engaged. So that's good. Thank you.
Well, I
Appreciate.
hope to come back and share more stories with you once again. Like it's been an absolute pleasure. My thoughts are my own. I love CryptoWorth, but I'm not speaking on behalf of that corporation, and I'm not giving financial advice. Education, education, education. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
Cool. Thank you so much.